A wind-driven rain pattered against the rooftops and streets of Blackpool. The eldritch purple glow of the arcane street lamps cast minimal light upon the cobblestone pathway. Two men, escorted by a city construct, traveled in silence through the murky darkness. The construct's iron feet clanked against the organized stone. Its lifeless glass eyes scanned the streets ahead for lurking rogues or miscreants. The individuals, huddled beneath their cloaks, did their best to shield their eyes from the slanting rain. As they drew closer to their destination, the elvish man, Idomo Gauntlighter, could feel dread culminating in his chest. He hated this aspect of his career and disliked thinking how its other functions had grown easier over time. Idomo struggled with taking lives for 5 years before he grew desensitized to it. After 10 years, he couldn't help but still feel akin to a barbarian for ripping children from their homes. Hauling men and women to prison, knowing that their lives would be forfeit, had required about 7 years to stomach. Idomo had been an officer of the law for close to 60 years now out of his 140 years of life. But informing a family their loved one wasn't coming home again, that still twisted his gut into a knot. Idomo adjusted his hat to protect his pointed ears from the rain and heaved a gruff sigh.
What are you so worried about?
The human at Idomo's side asked.
Isn't this an easier part of the job? We just tell them what we know and go. Certainly beats getting my ass handed to me by the chief.
Idomo looked over at his newly assigned partner. Hoyt Calder was 18 and convinced he was the toughest shit on this side of the Stonefist Quarter.
You've been on the force, what, 6 months?
Idomo questioned.
Yes, sir.
Hoyt responded.
Then I need you to shut up and let me do the talking.
Hoyt nodded his understanding before pausing in front of the residence they had been looking for.
Well, we're here,
Hoyt announced. He snuck a glance at the slip of parchment he had shoved into his cloak pocket. After confirming they had arrived at the right address, he dug his fist and the parchment back into the confines of his cloak. The construct that had been escorting the two officers cranked to a halt behind them and waited. Idomo raised his hand to knock on the door while recalling the scripted words he hated to recite. He forced his shoulders back and fixed himself into a straight, professional posture. Idomo's heavy sigh was visible from the chill of the rain. Hoyt's confident posture ebbed into one of uncertainty as he turned to Idomo.
Tonight's the night you learn, Hoyt.
I'll learn what?
He asked, blinking away the rainwater that dripped into his eyes.
If you really have what it takes to be an officer of the law.
Idomo replied before knocking on the door. He shook the dew from his hand as the door opened a moment after. Yellow light filtered out onto the street and cast 4 fused shadows upon the rain-slick stone. A smiling man, seemingly in his 30s, with the spatula in hand had answered the door. Upon seeing the two officers and their construct at his doorstep, his jubilant expression morphed into one of concern.
Can I help you?
Mr. Axel Redrix?
Idomo asked. In the home's living room, Hoyt caught sight of a cloth princess doll dressed in purple fabric abandoned on the floor. Small hands snatched a hold of the doll, and the young officer's breath hitched when he saw a little girl staring at him.
Yes? What do you want?
Axel questioned, his gaze darting between the two officers.
I am Idomo Gauntlighter, and this is my partner, Hoyt Calder. We are from the Blackpool Constabulary. May we come in?
Axel nodded and moved aside so the two officers could enter his home. He closed the door behind them, abandoned the spatula on a nearby table, and lifted his frightened daughter into his arms. Not long afterward, the weeping emanating from the Redrix household matched the evening rain outside.